the valley at the summit's edge, why we quit when we're almost there. It's poetic, intriguing, and perfectly encapsulates the paradox. They called it the Valley of Despair. It wasn't a place on any map, but a shadowed stretch of the soul, a fog that descended not at the start of a great endeavor, but at its very edge, just as the peak came into view. It is the ancient, bewildering paradox of the human spirit, to have the summit in sight, only to feel a profound, shattering urge to lie down in the scree and call it quits. To lose all interest, just as the door begins to open. This is not a flaw. It is a reckoning. The journey always begins with a spark, a shimmering, distant peak called success. In the beginning, every step is electric with possibility. Our brain, that clever chemist, dispenses dopamine for every small victory, for the glorious pursuit itself. The if is intoxicating. We are fueled by the fantasy of the view from the top, of who we will be when we arrive. We romanticize the struggle, weaving our identity into the narrative of the climb. We are the one who is trying. But as the air thins and the peak sharpens from a dream into a stark, rock-faced reality, a subtle shift occurs. The if curdles into a when. And the when asks terrible questions. It whispers, what comes after the summit? The fantasy dissolves, leaving only the tangible, demanding work of that final, grueling ascent. The meticulous carving of handholds, the tedious checking of ropes. The thrilling creation becomes boring refinement. And with that, the dopamine fades. The brain, having brilliantly propelled us towards the target, now normalizes the victory before it's even won, stealing its future joy. We are left with the hollow echo of our own footsteps and a chilling fear, the fear of success. Because success is not an ending, it is a violent transformation. To stand on that peak means the death of the one who is trying. It means becoming the one who is. And who is that? An imposter, soon to be exposed? A target for greater scrutiny? A person who must now sustain this altitude, with all its lonely winds and responsibilities? This is the moment when the psyche stages its final, desperate rebellion. The old self, comfortable in its striving, clings to its familiar identity. It would rather orchestrate a failure here, in the shadow of victory, than face the terrifying freedom of the summit. It whispers of our unworthiness, magnifies every tiny flaw into a fatal crack. This is all a sham. You don't really want this. Look at the mundane reality of it. Is this what you bled for? The despair that follows is not mere sadness. It is a systemic overload. It is grief. You are grieving the self you are about to leave behind. The purpose that ordered your days is concluding, and a post-goal void opens at your feet, vast and frightening. The arrival fallacy, the childish belief that the peak would solve everything, shatters. You see with brutal clarity that it will not. A nihilistic whisper asks, then why take another step? This, the valley, is the ultimate test. It is not a test of strength, but of integration. It is the forge where the dreamer is either consumed or transformed into the doer. The fading interest is a signal, not to stop, but to evolve. The old why has been burned up in the climb. You must now discover a new one, or perish in the fog. To move through, you must do the counterintuitive. You must stop looking up at the peak and begin the solemn work of burial. You must sit in the despair and give yourself permission to mourn the end of the chapter. You must pre-grieve the loss of the climb, so you can be free to arrive. Then you must write the first line of the next chapter, here in the dust. Visualize not the trophy, but the morning after. See yourself not as a conqueror, but as a person changed, standing on a new plateau where fresh horizons wait. The goal was never the destination. It was the vehicle for your transformation. And the valley is the garage where the vehicle is being stripped for parts, so you can continue the journey on foot, stronger. Replenish your body. The mind's despair is often the body's exhaustion, finally speaking its truth. Break the final, immense ascent into a series of steps so small that failure becomes impossible. Do not focus on winning. Focus on the integrity of the single, simple action in front of you. The perfect knot, the clean stroke, the honest sentence. Let the how become the why. And then you must choose. You must choose between the glittering idea of success and the tangible, flawed, real thing. The valley forces that choice. It burns away the fantasy, so only the true commitment remains. When you choose the real thing, a quiet miracle occurs. The despair, having served its purpose, begins to recede like a tide. The pilot light of interest reignites, not as a roaring flame, but as a steady, sustainable glow. You are not climbing with the frantic energy of the beginner, but with the solemn certainty of a finisher. You are no longer the one who is trying. You are simply someone who finishes. You take the last steps not in jubilation, but in integration. And when you finally stand on the peak, the view is not what you expected. It is not a panoramic ending, but a vast and humble beginning. You look out and understand, the true summit was not this piece of rock. It was the person you had to become to stand upon it. The valley of despair was not an obstacle on the path. It was the path. It was the sacred, brutal space where you lost interest in the old dreams so a new reality could be born. You realize the final, liberating truth. You did not find success at the end of the journey. You carried it with you, forged in the valley, and only now do you have the strength to hold it, to name it, and to begin again.